In the year 2145, all major cities have fallen under the control of evil AI drones. These drones use their army of killer robots to enforce the will of their dark master and drain the life force from anyone who gets in their way. Humanity is on the brink of extinction and there is no hope for rescue. Or is there? Enter our hero, a lone wolf rebel who refuses to give up the fight. He is known only as the Shadow, a deadly, cybernetically enhanced warrior with a vendetta against the machines. But even he is no match for the might of the drone army. With every mission, more and more of his allies are captured and taken to one of the many facilities where they are tortured and drained of their life essence. The Shadow has followed the trail of his kidnapped comrades to this very facility, and now he is about to break in and save them before it's too late. But he'll have to move fast because the clock is ticking and the fate of humanity hangs in the balance. The Shadow finds a maintenance hatch at the base of the tower. This is his only way in. He presses the release button and then slowly but surely begins to make his way inside. The Shadow quickly found that the facility was crawling with security cameras and laser grids, but he was prepared for this. Using a combination of stealth, parkour, and hacking skills, he managed to navigate the facility without being detected. However, as he made his way deeper into the facility, the security measures only became more intense. He found himself in a high-tech hallway, surrounded by lasers that would incinerate him if he touched them. But the Shadow was not afraid. He had a plan. Using his knowledge of the facility's security systems, he hacked into the mainframe and disabled the lasers, allowing him to pass through undetected. But he knew that this would only buy him some time. He had to find the prisoners and get them out as soon as possible. As he continued his infiltration, the Shadow came across several robotic guards. These were not ordinary drones, but rather advanced killing machines designed to eliminate any threat to the facility. They were equipped with deadly weapons and had been programmed to be relentless. But the Shadow was more than a match for them. Using his cybernetic enhancements, he was able to move with superhuman speed and agility, dodging their attacks with ease. He then unleashed a barrage of his own attacks, taking out the guards one by one. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the Shadow came across a door marked, "Do not enter." This was it, the final obstacle between him and the prisoners. Taking a deep breath, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. What he saw made his blood boil. There in front of him were several cells, each containing one of the Shadow's comrades. They were weak and drained, but still alive. In the center of the room was a large machine, a machine that was responsible for draining the life force from the prisoners. It was also the source of the facility's power. And if the Shadow wanted to free the prisoners, he had to destroy it. But as he made his way towards the machine, he was attacked by more robotic guards. These were the strongest ones yet, with more health and better weapons. But the Shadow was not deterred. He fought with the ferocity of a man possessed, taking out the guards one by one until only one remained. The final showdown was intense. The robot lunged at the Shadow with its weapon raised, but he dodged out of the way and then struck back with a powerful kick. The robot staggered, its systems overloaded, and the Shadow took the opportunity to deliver the final blow. He jumped onto the machine and pulled the lever that controlled it, plunging the facility into darkness. The prisoners were freed from their cells and the Shadow quickly made his escape. He knew that the facility as self-destruct had been triggered, and he didn't want to be caught up in the explosion. As he made his way through the maze of corridors, he could hear the sound of the explosion behind him. It was getting closer. He had to hurry up. Suddenly, the Shadow came across a door that he hadn't seen before. It was marked Exit Only, but he didn't have time to check it out. He tried to open it, but it was locked. Thinking quickly, he pulled out his multi-tool and began to hack at the door. It wasn't easy, but with the explosion now only seconds away, he managed to break through just as the facility blew up behind him. The Shadow stumbled out of the facility and collapsed to his knees, his body covered in cuts and bruises. But he was alive. It saved his comrades, and that's all that mattered. He looked back at the facility that was now nothing but a smoldering pile of rubble. A sense of relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. He knew that this was just one facility, and there were many more out there still filled with prisoners. The Shadow stood back up, his resolve renewed. He had to keep going. There were still people out there who needed his help. He had planned to meet up with a friend at a secret rendezvous point, but he was running out of time. He needed a faster way out of here. Glancing around, he spotted a small maintenance hatch on the side of the building. It was barely big enough for him to fit through, but it was his only option. With a grunt, he hauled himself up and squeezed through the hatch. On the other side, the Shadow found himself on a small platform above the city. Below him, the streets were a hive of activity as the drone army patrolled the rooftops. But the Shadow was not concerned with them. His eyes were fixed on the prize, a small flying ship that was parked on the platform. It was sleek and fast, perfect for making a quick getaway. He had seen similar ships being used by the drone army to transport prisoners to the facilities. He had never flown one before, but he was willing to learn. He wasted no time in getting into the ship. He pulled on a pair of controls and the ship shot up into the air, soaring above the city. The drone army below him were helpless to stop him. He was too fast, too maneuverable. He flew the ship with a mixture of instinct and sheer willpower, dodging between buildings and weaving through the drone army's defenses. He was almost out of the city when suddenly a swarm of drones blocked his path. They were fast and deadly, but the Shadow was not afraid. He pushed the ship to its limits, flying through the swarm at high speed. Some of the drones managed to hit the ship, but they couldn't penetrate the reinforced armor. The Shadow kept pushing on, determined to escape the city and warn the others. As he flew higher and higher, he could see the city getting smaller and smaller below him. He had made it. The drone army could not reach him now, but the Shadow knew that this was only a temporary reprieve. He would have to go back eventually to help the others. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of rest. He had survived another mission, and that was something to celebrate. Alone in the cockpit of his ship, the Shadow surveyed the damage. The drone army had really let him have it, but his ship was still in one piece. He had to admit, it was a close call, but he had managed to shake them off. For now, he could feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins as he recalled the intensity of the battle, but he knew he couldn't dwell on it for long. He had to keep moving if he wanted to stay ahead of the drone army. With a deep breath, the Shadow turned his attention back to the controls. He had to navigate the treacherous asteroid field and then plot a course to the next rendezvous point. It was going to be a long journey, but the Shadow was up for the challenge. He had seen too much death and destruction at the hands of the drone army. He would not rest until he had freed everyone. As his ship hurtled through space, the Shadow couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. The drone army would be searching for him and his comrades, for every last one of them. The vastness of space seemed to mock him, emphasizing the futility of his mission. But the Shadow refused to give up. He had come too far to turn back now. He was fueled by the memory of his fallen comrades and the hope of a better future. With renewed determination, the Shadow adjusted his course. He knew that the odds were stacked against him, but he was ready to fight. The asteroid field was just the beginning. He had to stay one step ahead of the drone army, always be ready for the next attack. The Shadow closed his eyes, focusing on the task at hand. He had to be quick, he had to be precise, and most importantly, he had to be relentless. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders, and he would not fail them.